We're with Richard Shafsky. Richard, so in your opinion, how are these crystal skulls made? How were they grinded?
Well, George, I don't believe that they were ground at all. What I was able to observe in the crystal skull would be a group of what I call, these are aliens that I call the bubbleheads. They're humanoid, have kind of a larger head than we have, not quite the same distinct features, and they would stand around a skull, and what they would be doing, they would be directing what I think we could probably call some sort of a lased light onto the crystal, and as that lased light was onto the crystal, you would see it begin to form into a humanoid configuration. That's what I was able to observe. Now, what that technology actually was, what that light actually was, I could not say.
Okay, fascinating. All right, so these skulls are made. There's got to be a purpose. There's got to be a direction. There's got to be a reason, right?
There sure is. And this is part of this is part of the main message. These skulls are stargates. When you're in the presence of them, and you can look in, you can actually see a vortex form. It goes, and then you have images come up. You can see and you can view those in other dimensions. You can view the past. You can see past civilizations. You're able to observe former prior eras on Earth, for example, where there were ice sheets at one time covering a good part of the Earth. You get to look at and observe pyramids under construction. You can see spaceships, what we would call spaceships today, flying saucers. You also get to have direct contact, if you would like, with those that are aliens. And at the same time that you have these visuals, if you've been trained, you're going to realize you're getting downloaded with a tremendous amount of information. Now, that information is what is really, truly necessary for us to survive these coming, what we'll call tough times here on planet Earth, which are certainly starting to reveal themselves. We're coming into an age where water resources are contaminated. They are polluted. We're coming into a time when food resources are short. And in fact, we have Terminator genes out there, so everybody isn't getting fed. We do have to take advantage of new technology for the generation of power. Now, different sciences that are going to be necessary for not just our survival, but for our continuing into the future and joining the galactic neighborhood, if you will. We're going to have to take advantage of cleaning up our environment. We're going to have to take advantage of new science to generate power, to run everything from household appliances to starships. This information does come forth out of the crystal skulls.
Okay, now you have alluded several times about the ET involvement with these skulls and other life forms as well.
Yes.
Are they here?
Well, some of them most certainly are. And I think I know they have been here for a very long time. Some of the ones that we can observe, George, that go back into what we would call our very early or our prehistory they look like the giants that Steve Quayle has related to on the show. Oh, yes. And in fact, the giants are very present in the Mayan history. The skulls were at one time, a Mayan shaman, for example, could protect his people from the giants. I remember, George, traveling in Central America with Francesco, the Mayan priest. There are a lot of limestone caves there. Some of those caves were pointed out to me as being in prehistory as being occupied by giants. Now, those giants were able to emanate a psychic field that was very debilitating. In fact, it could be crippling to the human physiology. A shaman was able to take the crystal skull, for example, the Mayan crystal skull, and get that psychic energy contained within the skull and then reflect it right back onto the giant. And we have scenes where then the giant goes down and the shaman's warriors, the Order of the Jaguar, the Order of the Eagle, they were able to come forward and effectively dispatch the giant. So there's, we have things in our history that have not really been revealed so far as Steve Quayle has done a real good job about the giants. Now, and also, by the way, it was very obvious that some of the human sacrifices that were attributed to the Mayans to appease their gods, I can tell you for sure those were not just sacrifices to appease the gods. They were actually sacrifices that were done to feed the giants and to keep them from coming out and plundering in the middle of the night, let's say, an entire village.
They'd rather say, "Hey, here's your meal. Leave us alone."
Exactly. And when I spoke with Steve about this, he concurred, and I was actually able to observe this in some of the images within the skull. Now, the ETs that were present and that still do continue to be present, some of them are in the configuration of what we would call the Greys. Those are not necessarily friendly at all, and I would not consider them to be friendly. I'm not sure that they're even of a life form that we recognize as being a life form. But there are other ET presences that they appear to be very human. Some of them are very large in stature, by the way. And we do have in the Mayan history consideration for actually genetic splicing, if you will, genetic manipulation, where the gene pool of us humans was intersected with some of the genes from those that are off planet to help our brains grow, to help us be able to assimilate and take care of the planet because we needed the information and our brains were worked with. And so the Mayans are actually a link to the progenitors who created the skulls, and those were definitely ET. We still do not have a science today here that is able to manufacture these skulls without them just totally shattering and falling apart.
Do any of these skulls resemble the aliens, the ETs? I mean,
yes.
They do. Okay.
Yes. Some of them do, and the ones that do actually have a very long, elongated facial features, a very high forehead. And what I have seen with the ETs, and these would be the ones that I would call the bubbleheads.
Yes.
Again, they are humanoid, but they have a very large, elongated front facial structure, and they have a higher brow, a higher forehead than we do. Now, there are some of the skulls that do have that type of a depiction.
Okay, now, how would a shaman use the skulls in these rituals, and we'll get into healing in a second.
Sure.
But, for example, how to, let's say, block off these giants from attacking?
Okay, what the shaman would do, he would go out to the entrance of where one of the caves were. Now, the giants came out mostly at night. They were creatures that did their hunting after dark. What they would do is they would throw some smoke bundles up to the front of the cave. They would draw a giant out. They would hold the shaman would hold the skull up in front of the giant. Once he was into the field where he began to get a headache, he knew he was within that psychic emanating field of the giant. And with the skill of a shaman, he would actually be able to reflect that energy right back into the giant, give him a master headache, in fact, take him down, and then they would be able to dispatch